Welcome to Connected Leadership. I'm your host, Kimberly Denville, the founder of Comet Leadership Development. My passion is helping others to develop their own leadership style and skills. Whether it's through one-on-one mentoring, writing, or speaking to groups of people, I love to discuss topics related to leadership and people management. We believe that anyone can be a leader, whether you're a people manager or not. We want to help you build the skills that help you connect and motivate people so they can reach their full potential. Thank you for joining us today, and let's dive in. Hello, everyone. As we continue to work through our series on coaching, this week's episode is going to be talking about how you address performance challenges. Notably, how do you identify if the performance challenge is driven by an issue of skill, someone who can't do something because of lack of knowledge, training, whatever the case may be, versus will, someone who can do it, but is choosing not to do it. When a manager is faced with an employee who is not performing at the desired level within their job, one of the first questions that should be asked is if the deficiency is coming from that lack of skill, capability, or lack of will, desire. Is the correction for this deficiency something that can be taught to help bring performance back in line? Or have you already made several attempts to equip the employee with the right skill sets, but they are showing a lack of desire to perform tasks in the way that you want them done? There's also the question of, which would you rather have? Both skill and will issues can be challenging to coach for different reasons. When something involves a matter of skill, this is largely a knowledge or a capability gap that prevents them from being able to perform the requirements. Skill deficiencies typically can either be hard skills, so knowing how to perform a task or follow instructions relating to steps to be taken, computer skills, application knowledge, how to work a machine, understanding different reports, signs, signals, the ability to sometimes translate information from one format to another. A skill deficiency can also be a soft skill, something like empathy or understanding the word choices that are being used, communicating with another person, controlling a situation, the ability to change your approach, or the ability to try different tactics depending on your audience. Your challenge as a leader is determining why is there a skill gap. Has your team member had appropriate exposure to the skill? Have they had training? Have they had opportunities to practice what they've been trained? It may be easier to teach a hard skill than a soft skill, depending on the nature of the person that you're coaching. Someone may be a natural listener, so teaching empathy is relatively easy to do, versus teaching them how to use a custom computer application. As another example, sometimes developing leadership qualities may be a little more difficult in someone who is extremely introverted, but highly analytical. Now keep in mind, don't dismiss a team member as a possible leader because of a natural inclination towards introversion. Sometimes people can become highly effective by going against their type if they have been given adequate training and support. This is because they can understand both sides of the coin. A lack of will is a slightly different matter. If your employee has proven that they possess the skills required, and maybe even a mastery of the functions that they perform, but they're displaying a lack of desire to perform, the leader is often placed in a different challenge. You must determine if the lack of will comes from something that can be overcome. The reasons behind a lack of will are not always readily identifiable. Perhaps the employee is disgruntled with a change in management or a change in their job function. Maybe they're facing burnout after doing the job for a long period of time. Sometimes they have simply started viewing their position in a poor light and no longer have the desire to do more than the absolute bare minimum that is necessary not to be fired. This is the core of a disengaged employee. Sometimes there are cases even where an employee is actively and willfully not performing in an attempt to undermine their leader, their team, or to try to force management into some sort of action. Each one of those scenarios can be resolved, albeit sometimes with different end results. But each one requires a different management tactic in order to address it. And you, as the leader, must determine how far you are willing to go to correct a matter of will. In addition to looking at the skill versus will discussion, and before jumping directly into a corrective coaching, you must also determine if there are other outside factors or perception issues that are clouding judgment. If you have an employee with a perceived lack of will, are they lacking the will to do specific tasks? Or are they viewing the priorities of their position and the responsibilities that they have in a different light than what you are? And because of this difference in priorities, they are placing their focus elsewhere. When you have an employee with a skill challenge, are they actually lacking the desired skill? Or is there something in the environment that is preventing the application of that skill? Maybe they are doing it exactly as you're instructing them to do, but they are getting a different outcome than you were expecting. In these types of cases, where are you better served? Do you guide and correct or replace the employee to get to your desired outcome? Or do you trust in your employees and look for those unexpected opportunities that arise when you have an unexpected outcome? There is not always a clear-cut answer of how and when to correct. It's a blend of a lot of factors surrounding the nature of the role, the seniority of the person, how much creativity you can allow to that person or to that role, and the amount of risk involved in not following prescribed actions. So I come back to the question that I asked earlier. Which would you rather have? A lack of skill or a lack of will? In the coming podcast, we'll talk about how you coach each one of these things, how you coach for skill, and the tactics you use to coach for will. But for now, I want you to think on a team member that you feel isn't meeting standards. And I want you to contemplate the questions I posed above. Can you identify if they are struggling with a will or a skill issue? And once you think you've identified which one it is, can you look beyond the surface? Are there other factors that you may need to help address? Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that not all people and situations fall so neatly into black and white categories. Perhaps a person is lacking a skill in a particular area, but they also lack will in another. Maybe they lack the skill because they are lacking the will. Or, sometimes they are choosing not to perform because they feel they haven't been properly equipped, even though you feel they have. I have had people with both immense skill and a lot of will, but ultimately they weren't a good fit for the particular position that they were in. They were actually a better fit for another part of the organization. That last one can be particularly challenging. As a leader, you must also come to recognize that a poor job fit does not mean a poor employee. If you have someone who is not fitting well in their position, but you see that they have a lot of desire to perform, they have a lot of motivation, there's just something about that skill set that doesn't work within that role, maybe they fit better elsewhere in the organization. As a leader, you need to think on why. You need to consider what is driving this performance challenge so you can help someone reach their full potential. That's all for this episode. Thank you for joining in and listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be alerted when the next episode comes out. If you want to get more detail on today's topic, or you want to check out our other material, please visit us at cometleadership.com. You'll find a series of articles, templates, and training material. You can also email me directly at kimberly@cometleadership.com. Thanks for listening and have a fantastic day.